All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today's tech talk around challenges in with cloud security. My name is Daniel Navarro. I'm an account executive with eGroup. And if a little housekeeping, if anyone has any questions throughout this presentation today, do we have a chat box? You can submit those, and we'll try to address those at the end of the session today. And if for any reason we can't address them, we will respond to you directly and kind of make sure we answer any questions that pop up. On with me today is Steve Hall with Arctic Wolf. Steve, you want to kind of start off with a quick introduction?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Steve Hall. I've been with Arctic Wolf now for about a year and a half, maybe a little north of that. Prior to Arctic Wolf, I was in a number of different roles for about 25 years of my career. I started early on doing infrastructure, route switch stuff. Early in the 2000s, my focus switched from more of that infrastructure background to security. And for the last 20 or so years, I've been managing security teams, improving security postures. So I have a unique perspective from a customer-facing side of things on how we help solve for here at Arctic Wolf solve for business problems. So
sure.
Nice.
Question for you, Steve, real quick. I mean, are you seeing, 20 years is a lot, especially around security. Are you seeing, now being, more relevant than ever as it results to security?
Yeah, I think a lot of the challenges have been in existence for a long time. I recall back to a SANS class I was taking around 2006, 2007 timeframe, and a lot of the challenges that we face for people problems, skill shortages existed then. They were calling it out in that SANS class then, and they still exist today. So there's been a lot of enhancement and improvement in tool sets, but the people problem hasn't kept.
Sure. Yeah, I could agree with that. Well, great. Well, we'll kind of get started here. For those of you who are not familiar with eGroup has been in business for over 20 years and really have standardized on providing a brand promise of delivering speed and certainty with cloud and data center initiatives. And we offer modernization and optimization services that really unlock working capital that can really be better spent on innovation and improvement areas, example like today, security, right? You can see with our CSAT score, it's something that we take very big pride in. We are a customer satisfaction driven organization and really look at our clients as our chief investors at eGroup and really help derive how eGroup operates and runs our business today. I want to start off with a quick success story or case study that was recently conducted with Charleston Southern. And really, you can kind of see that the challenges that they faced were very specific to them, but really most organizations have the same challenge of needing better visibility into security, lacking the internal staff or expertise to be able to kind of keep up with cyber attacks or being able to monitor them, right? There's a big gap from you can collect all the logs and do everything you need. You can have your perimeter set in place from a security perspective, but if you're not able to monitor it and have a response to it, that's a big gap most organizations face. So they were able to really, they proceeded with Arctic Wolf from a managed detection and response perspective, and you can see some of the comments from them specifically. But being able to have the comfortability and confidence that their environment is 24/7 or is monitored 24/7 is of great value to them, right? And one thing I kind of saw this the other day that I thought was interesting. A new IDC survey was released this month that said that one in three organizations worldwide have experienced a ransomware attack or breach that blocked access to their systems or data in the past 12 months. So I think we can all see that cybersecurity is on the rise, or cybersecurity attacks and things like that. I mean, Steve, did you want to highlight anything on this side specifically as it results to the partnership you guys have with Charleston Southern University?
I think what I'll do is kind of articulate some of those challenges that we help solve for throughout the presentation. So some of the people solve, some of the visibility that we give. And then I've got some timeline slides that take you through an incident that kind of point out some of the needs that they had challenges and visibility into. So I'll point it out throughout the slide. So nothing more that I wanted to add here.
Great. Well, I'll pass it off to you, Steve, to kind of go through what I think is a hot topic with most organizations really looking to take advantage of the economics and innovation that the cloud provides, there's a lot to be considered here, right? I mean, it's there's shared responsibilities, things like that play. So Steve, I'll pass it on to you to kind of go through your slides.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, and I think a lot of this is what I've seen throughout my career as cloud becomes more relevant, as well as just in the last year and a half on what I see communicating with prospects every day. A lot of this isn't earth-shattering or new news, but these are reasons or benefits or challenges that cloud is becoming more relevant today. And I think this first one here is, this is kind of a scenario where leadership thinks that transferring, and normally I see this as leadership tries to transfer some of the risk to a cloud provider, and that's generally not the case. Like you said, Daniel, this is more of a shared responsibility or shared liability when you talk about cloud environments. There's a lot of benefits to cloud environments, but risk transference or mitigating the risk altogether as a result of that cloud provider is generally not something that's happening today. But and then we see development shops kind of bypassing IT, and really when we have IT teams that are constrained and can't execute and give development what they need to execute, this becomes, they call them shadow IT, but the need for developers is agility. So when you talk about things like Azure and AWS, them being able to spin up resources at their need in their development cycles, that need becomes more agility and less security minded. So not that they don't have security in mind, but it's generally not their first thought of why their cloud environments needs. It's really obtaining an objective of what they're trying to account for in that development cycle. So, a lot of these use cases are not any fault of anyone's. This is just happenstance and circumstances that I see that's driving these cloud innovations or movement. The licensing push is pretty realistic, where Microsoft is kind of forcing the hand. You see a lot of migration there, and there's a ton of benefit here. I remember always having a lot of nervous energy when I see information stores being corrupted on our Exchange servers, or blue screens, even going back further, blue screens of death coming in and seeing that Exchange server and knowing that I'm in for hours of restoration. So that's a pleasant surprise to get some of the infrastructure operational components offloaded to someone else. So, but a lot of the Office licensing push is pushing that subscription model, moving to the cloud. So you see some reduction of on-premise infrastructure and support. It's generally not going to lessen too much of the human element or the people you need to execute, because your data is still moving with that service. So you still have to administer and manage that data set, even though it is a cloud solution. But by and large, we see a lot of movement there. And it's generally not a cost savings. In some use cases, it could be if you've got a lot of overhead and infrastructure for redundancy, a lot of the things and benefits that cloud provides natively. But that's generally not a cost savings uptake. But then the other thing to think about too is risk appetite. We see a lot of customers that are just straight on anti-cloud environments for whatever reason or another. But a lot of what we see there is as headcount turns over or leadership turns over, where there's a little more appetite to start dabbling. A lot of organizations are leveraging or starting to leverage things like Azure and AWS for their business continuity, leveraging it as backup targets. So they're starting to dip their toe in it, and it's important to know that as you move out there, you have some peace of mind when you're monitoring or controlling these or triaging these events. So you're moving infrastructure out into the cloud environments, but that doesn't stop the triage events or the need to understand what's happening for risk in those environments. So if you could move the next slide, Daniel. I put these questions in here to just to ask yourself, are we monitoring our cloud environment? Are we just doing best effort triage? I was literally talking to a prospect yesterday that was verbalizing some of the challenges about getting valuable data out of his Microsoft 365 instance. So, are you triaging these alerts? Is it best effort? Do you know from a tenant perspective if you've got the right log sources, the right monitoring setup? A lot of these are people problems, skill challenges. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you've backed into cloud environments by circumstance, and that's no fault of anyone's This is just some thoughts to think about. And I'm talking about more of how we circumstantially get there, and less of people who have an active cloud strategy and move into it with a full strategy baked. Most of those instances are smaller instances. Those are the minority for sure. But also, when change happens in those environments, how do you know that you didn't inadvertently hurt your security posture? So there's a couple of solutions that we add on to our solutions, which I'll go over here in a second. But I've got a triage event coming up here on the next slide that really focuses around a timeline on how we triage and the importance of triage in those environments. And this specific one is around business email compromise. If you could go to the next slide there, Daniel. And this I'm going to build this slide out as we go through and talk some of these things. This is a business email compromise, like I said, timeline of a manufacturing, one of our customers in manufacturing. This specific use case is going to walk us through what happened from the time we saw that first log to closure and remediation of the event. So in this specific case, we see an attacker with stolen credentials logging into the Microsoft 365 environment, and then flooding with multi-factor authentication pushes to a legitimate user. In this instance, the user clicked approve on that authentication push. So they were doing a couple things right. They were leveraging multi-factor, but this is, again, where importance comes into user education, making sure that users aren't accepting authentication requests that they didn't authenticate. So, and then that user established an active sync connection. So logged on, got the user to click accept on that attack, and then created some level of persistence by creating an active sync connection with that mailbox. Now, this first log source here was from Duo, which is an API cloud integration with their multi-factor environment. So we saw that the log hit for successful login. Next one, Daniel. And then at 116, the attacker, so you see a little bit of a delta here. The attacker was in the environment looking for something specific. So there's a technique, if an attacker adds himself to a global event, that creates some level of persistence for the attacker. So if that event, if they were to lose their connection or get that event gone, they have some kind of persistence here so that they can send to this meeting invite. So it gives them the ability to send, and you'll see what the attacker was trying to do here on the next bullet point. But that's at 116. And then again, at 116, we saw this get escalated because as soon as that attacker logged in, added himself to that calendar invite, they started adding rule sets. And there's some triage and some events that triggered this to go up to the forensics dashboard in our triage team on the back end. So this got raised. A triage engineer grabbed the activity and started their investigation. So you could see from that couple minutes from when that first indicator came, is only a couple minutes there. Now you can see here the attacker's in while we're doing triage. So the importance and timeliness of detection, it's critical. You can see here that attacker now was trying to upload a malicious PDF to the OneDrive instance, and then I think the intent here was to distribute this to those users in that calendar invite. So the triage team alerts the customer about the compromise. So when you go through onboarding with us, we build out escalation chains, whatever that looks like. So this triage engineer was engaging the customer to say, hey, we've got something going on here. We've got a compromised credential. We should reset the account and then disable the account. Validated the customer did that, disabled the account. And then on the very end of the slide here, this validated that the attacker no longer had access to that account anymore. Password was reset, disabled. And they worked after the incident to make sure that, one, the PDF wasn't distributed throughout the environment, and reviewing the logs that no other person opened that PDF. So I like the timelines that we show here just to give you an instance to show this is all cloud resources. So Office 365 cloud source, Duo cloud source, and the importance of timing. So when you look at the takeaways for this, it's a 19-minute time to detect scenario. It's critical. Now, if we aren't monitoring those logs, if we aren't looking for those instances when that attacker gets in the environment, there's a lot of things that they can do to create persistence, move laterally, get on premise, and do worse, right? This was a business email compromise, but a lot of these attackers are looking for persistence and data exfil, things that they can targeting backups for ransomware events, those sorts of things. So importance of monitoring still exists even if it's cloud, especially if it's cloud. So that's the timeline there.
And Steve, one question we had prior to this event was, and this might be a good time to hit on it, would be the process of onboarding Arctic Wolf and existing Microsoft 365 tenant. You want to hit on that now, or maybe wait for an...
Go to the platform slide. I'll kind of talk through it as I talk about our solutions. So the next slide is our platform slide and how we ingest. I'll talk a little bit about high level how we ingest, and then the time to value for our solution is relatively low lift because of some of the things that happen on the back end, and I'll address that onboarding. It's a pretty low lift, but our goal at Arctic Wolf is to ingest what you've invested in for security tools. So whatever technical controls you put in place, like antivirus, firewalls, email filtering, whatever the use case for those defense layers, we want to ingest that telemetry. We bring a few things to the table as a part of our platform, like sensors for network detection, like agents for host-based protection, whether they're on-premise or off-premise, API integrations with, the reason why we're talking today is cloud resources, so that extension into the cloud. So we correlate all of that event data in the platform. So the goal, again, we'll bring tool sets to the table, but also leverage what you've invested in as an organization. And then our three core services are managed detection and response, which is really what we went over in that timeline, detecting and responding and hopefully containing events when they're occurring in the environment. Manage risk, which is vulnerability scanning, both internal scanning, external scanning, host-based scanning. And then managed cloud monitoring really adds on to both managed detection and response for customers that have software as a solution, software as a service rather, services to infrastructure as a service solutions. Same with managed risk, where we're proactively scanning those infrastructures for misconfigurations in the environment. And then managed awareness, that's really the end user security, securing the human side of what we deliver as a service. We deliver this as a concierge security service. So our approach is you have triage team that's more of the tactical 24/7 continuous monitoring team where they're taking events like that timeline, running them around, making sure they're actually real before engaging our customer. And then each one of our customers gets a concierge security team assigned to them. That's two individuals, named individuals, where they're more strategic in nature, where they're going to give work to align your goals and objectives as an organization. If you have frameworks that you're adhering to, like PCI HIPAA, some of the newer CMMC kind of models where we're government contractors, aligning to frameworks there wherever we help fulfill controls within those frameworks, aligning to make sure that we're giving evidence, providing evidence of those controls. But also they're doing some of the proactive things in the environment, like looking for persistent threats. So a lot of threats lay low and slow, and they're looking through your environment, through the logs and the data in your environment to look for those persistent threats. But some of the value add that this team brings is what we call a security posture reviews. And these are intended to be deep dives into aspects of infrastructure that with the intent to harden. So optimize settings to reduce attack surface. So things like Active Directory might be a deep dive. Cloud is definitely a deep dive. Architecture reviews, firewall reviews. But again, the intent is to have this team be more strategic in nature, give you guidance on where you need, and as it relates to cloud, be that expert to give you guidance on how to secure your environment. So each one of our customers gets a named security team, which is effectively an extension of that team. Onboarding process, just to tailor off of what that question was, it's a pretty light lift. It's a typical onboarding process is a 30-day window. A lot of what we do in the initial meetings or fact-finding meetings is understand scope. So we get log data that we're going to be ingesting, number of sites, locations, sensors deployed, log sources that we're going to be grabbing from the cloud. you get an onboarding team that's dedicated to this process. So they help you ramp all of this stuff up. It's not a, you don't get stuck with any of it yourself. This is an assisted process that takes you all the way to the end to where you meet your concierge security team for the first time. And then a lot of that alignment of what you want to see for custom rules, custom alerts, what you want to get out for compliance mandates or compliance reporting, and just general insights and alignment happens with this concierge security team for the first time. And then some of the tuning happens to understand what is normal in your environment. So you sit with your concierge security team and look at the alerts that are fired, and then you work to tune that process so that we're not sending false positives. So really our overall goal is to own that security outcome for our customers so they don't have to do triage themselves. Is that kind of what you wanted me to go through, Daniel?
Yeah, I think that's good. Well, there's one question of like very specifically with M365 as well, like, or the cloud, what would be a, how would you onboard M365 into an existing tenant, right? I think it's just I'll let you hit on it, but it's fairly easy.
Yeah, it's really just an API integration, and that's all part of that onboarding process. So as we extend and look at that cloud environment, it's really just leveraging that API integration to pull the log telemetry out of that control plane in your tenant. Yeah. So our SIM, our back end, is in AWS. So what we do is correlate that data on the back end between your cloud environment, to on-premise environment, agent-based telemetry. So all of that gets correlated in the back end, and it's a really low lift. For cloud monitoring, this is really just reiterating all of our services are focused around that concierge security team, both the triage on the back end as well as the named individuals that get assigned to your organization. And this is really rolling up the SaaS-based solutions, infrastructure solutions, and cloud expertise, the guidance, someone to go to as that concierge security team to give you expertise and insight as you go more and more, as cloud becomes more and more prevalent. An interesting statistic on this slide is our SOC report last year, and you can find this on our website, but our SOC report last year, nearly half of all incidents that we detected had a cloud component as a part of that detection or that incident. So it's a big player in what we're detecting on an everyday basis. So this is managed cloud monitoring. Again, this is just an add-on to infrastructure, the managed detection and response service. And then this cloud security posture management is for those environments where they have instances in AWS or Azure or GCP. And this is what we do in this environment is inventory what the resources are being leveraged in there. So again, adding some value there to understand what sources or what inventory you have in that cloud environment. But then each one of those vendors publishes a best known good or a best practice or a benchmark standard. So we scan those environments, those components in those environments to notify you when there's deviation from best practice. So this really goes into identifying when your misconfigurations happen. So proactively engaging the customer when we see those deviations, and then in effect hardening that attack surface as well. And the why Arctic Wolf, just to kind of close out here, is really the time to value. We bring some of that people, process, technology to the table, as well as leveraging what you've invested in. So this gives you the ability to have a full security operations center as a service delivered in a timely fashion, while you can still now focus on many other hats that you're wearing in the environment today. So we've got a few minutes left. I don't know if there were any other questions, Daniel.
Yeah, perfect. I know we kind of are wrapping up here. Let me do a quick check and see if there are any other questions. And if you have any, please submit them now. We can kind of jump into it. I'm not seeing any. Let me jump to one more thing and make sure we kind of hit on some of the, really what the questions that were kind of sent to us prior were around, just understanding, cloud security in general, right? I mean, there's a lot of risk that needs to be mitigated here. And then, like I mentioned with the Charleston Southern University, right? I mean, they had a gap when it came to being able to effectively monitor and keep up with malicious attacks, right? So that's where a lot of organizations, no matter the size or the organization, struggle with being able to maintain that level of security.
Yeah.
Steve, I'm not seeing anything really else. I mean, there's really around kind of the M365 tenant, which you kind of addressed with the APIs. There's some with around implementation and onboarding. That's something we can kind of hit on directly there, but not seeing anything else coming in. With that being said, we appreciate everyone's time today. A lot of what's covered today from Steve is very relevant and important to a lot of organizations. We will be reaching out if anyone is interested in and sees value in the solution and scheduling a kind of a security consultation. We'll be reaching out and seeing if we can help have a deeper discussion and see how this could be of a value solution to you all.